Everyone has at least one good story. What's yours? Background: my dad is a drama queen and has tons of stories like this one. He's Norwegian and spent his first year of college at University of Windsor. There was some initial confusion on his part when it came to enrolling in courses, so he ended up not getting into any of the ones that he needed for his major. He went to the registrar to complain about this and was promptly told that he could blame himself. And tough shit. Basically, my dad, having always been a clever jerk, decided to give CBC a call. CBC sent a reporter and a camera guy to my dad's dorm, and they proceeded to follow my dad around on campus. It was a rainy day and the story looked like this. A hopeful Norwegian boy came all the way to Canada to go to college, but didn't get to enroll in any of the courses he wanted. Here he is, sad and alone, standing alone in the rain on campus at U of Windsor. So the next morning, my dad wakes up and immediately turns on the TV to see if his story is on the local news. They had told him they weren't sure whether it would be or not. To his disappointment, his story is not featured. So he walks into the kitchen to make breakfast. TV still on in the background. As the local news finish, the national news broadcast starts. Turns out, my dad was the top story in all of Canada that day. He was immediately contacted by the dean of the university, who apologized frantically and ensured my dad that he could enroll in whatever courses he desired. My first day of first grade, I was waiting for the bus with my mother. The street I lived on connected to a very busy huge hill of main road. I watched this woman zoom down this curve on a bicycle going way too fast and hit a pothole. She flipped her bike and flew over her handlebars and hit a car that was coming up the road. Traffic stopped and my mom ran to this lady. She took her shirt off and started wrapping her head with the bleeding. I stayed with this lady while my mom ran back to our house and called 911. This was the early 90s and cell phones weren't a thing. I guess life was a little more trusting back then too, because no one thought twice about a 6-year-old caring for a bleeding unconscious woman in the road. Kicker is, none of these passengers in stopped cars did anything but stand around and watch. I truly believe it was this strange and traumatic moment that made me the terribly overcautious paranoid child I was and pursue nursing as an adult. I will never ever forget that lady, and I never knew what happened to her either after the ambulance came and took her away. TL. Doctor, I was late for my first day of school because I was covered in someone else's blood. One time my younger brother was vacuuming the house and came across a large huntsman spider. Instead of trapping it, or killing it, or telling literally anyone else in the house, he decided to just suck it up in the vacuum and be done with it. He left the vacuum with the bag still inside in the laundry while we went on holiday for a couple of weeks. We returned to the house infested with tiny spiders. We started killing them. They started getting bigger. Eventually we had to have the house fumigated. For added horror, feel free to Google image search Australian huntsman and keep in mind a full-sized one of those bad boys can be as big as your hand. Edit. People commenting that they're brothers because they eat bugs and aren't venomous enough to kill you. They're also giant hairy beasts that stick to your skin if they land on you and run faster than my dog. You'll need Jesus. I was fishing with a friend in a small pond a few years ago. My friend cast out a few times and went to reel in, but he snagged something about halfway back. Though it was just a branch or some weeds. But when he pulled it up out of the water, his hook was embedded in the balls of a 10-inch purple dildo that was burned on the end for some reason. I thought that was pretty hilarious, and I'll probably never forget it. TL. Dr. Dildo fishing. Backstory: I was 15 and had driver's ed, but didn't have my license yet. We also had to take first aid / CPR classes at my high school. Close bracket. My mom and I were home on a Saturday while my dad was at a riverboat gambling. Mom and I got into a fight, so I was upstairs pouting like a typical teenager. I was napping when I heard her start screaming my name. It wasn't an angry scream. It was a scared scream, which freaked me out. I ran downstairs to find blood everywhere on the floor, all over the dining room, kitchen, puddles of it. It's coming from my mom's ankle. A vein had ruptured, and for a while she didn't realize blood was running out of her as she sat at the kitchen table. From having first aid, I knew I had to get a tourniquet on her ankle to stop her losing more blood. We lived 20 minutes from the nearest hospital, and I didn't even think to call 911. I put her in the back seat with her leg up, wrapped tightly in towels, and drove like mad to get her there. I kept her talking, but as I was getting close to the she was slurring her speech and her eyes were rolling back in her head. The personnel got her from the vehicle and did their thing. The doctor later told me that if I had been any later she would have died. She lost almost half of her blood. She was diagnosed as diabetic while in the hospital, which helped save her life. 2. As a side note, as the staff were working on my mom, I had my grandmother repeatedly call my house phone. This was in the early 90s with no cell phones, to see if she could contact my dad. I was scared he was going to walk in, see puddles of blood and bloody footprints everywhere, and have a heart attack from the shock. TL. Doctor, I saved my mom from bleeding out when I was 15. I'd say that my best story stems from my unreasonable misfortune with the movie Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. Now, hear me out. The first time I tried to watch this movie, I decided to go to the movie theater to see it with my girlfriend at the time. I was in the 10th grade, and we had been dating for like 5 or 6 months. I shit you not. As the previews for the movie end, girlfriend decides that's the best time to lean over to me and start the whole look, I don't think this is gonna work out thing. She broke up with me right then and there. We just kinda left the theater after that. The second time, I had gone back to the theater with some friends. They decided to treat me to a night out after I had been so suddenly dumped by my ex. Well, after actually making it through the previews this time, the movie begins. We are sitting there watching for about half an hour when the ducking fire alarm goes off. Everyone in the theater gets up a little confused and proceeds to leave through the emergency exit. Summer Shat had pulled the fire alarm, and the entire theater was at the box office trying to get refunds. The line for refunds was ridiculous, so we just left. The third and final time I tried to watch this godforsaken film, I was at a close friend's house. Almost a full year later, his mom had cooked spaghetti for dinner, and we, my friend, his mom, his stepdad, and me, decided to put on me for to watch while we ate. I was just saying, man, yeah no, I seem to have bad luck with this movie. When shit got real, my friend's stepdad started choking on the spaghetti, like, really choking. We had to call an ambulance, and he ended up going to the hospital. My friend and I waited at his house after being assured by the paramedics that he'd be alright. And yet again, I didn't finish the movie. I've officially decided it's for the best if I just never try to watch Ghost Protocol again. TL. Doctor, Tom Cruise wants to ruin my life. How? Do you joke? On spaghetti? Meatballs, brah. Was asked to dress as a whale mascot for a parade. Rode on the bumper of an ancient fire truck on the hottest day of the year. Some combination of co and heat caused me to begin projectile vomiting within the costume. Then I passed out. Luckily I had my flipper secured enough to keep me on the truck. Last thing I heard was, "Mommy, what's wrong with that whale?" As I began dangling unconscious for the remainder of the route. Came to as they were loading us into a flatbed to get back to our cars. Dad made me ride on trash bags home. 20 plus years ago. I can still smell the moment. TL. Doctor, my girlfriend and I stumbled upon two change machines giving out free money. Once on a random weekday during the middle of the day. My girlfriend and I were both off work and ended up in an arcade by the bowling/cinema complex. In the UK, don't know about elsewhere, these arcades always have machines to win small amounts of coins. Link imga.com/QSG1MZK, JPG, and useless toys. So I go to the change machine to get some 10p coins. I put in 20p, but instead of 2x 10p coins dropping out, I get 2x1. Strange. So anyway, I still want my 10p coins so I can play the machine. So I put in another 20p coin I had in my pocket, and again I get 2x1 back. At this point I figured something was up, and I call my girlfriend over and tell her I put 40p in the machine, and it gave me 4. I tried putting in the only other coin I had, which was a 50p coin. Sure enough, I got 5x1 from the machine. I don't know what's going on, so I try putting a 1 coin in. and I get 10x1 coins back. Neither of us can quite believe what is happening. But I try a couple more times just recycling the 1 coins into the machine, and I keep getting 10x1 coins back. After about 4 times, nothing happens. The machine must be out of coins. We are both at this point extremely confused, excited, and somewhat paranoid. There's nobody else around. The whole place is dead. My pockets are full of 1 coins. I go to the other machine and cautiously put in another 1 coin. And magically 10x1 coins come out again. Both machines are doing this for some reason. I try a couple more times on that machine and eventually the paranoia just gets too much for us. And we both think something ducking weird is going on here. We should go. So we both quick walk out of there. Me looking like some kind of paranoid Basil Fawlty. Just wanting to get to the car so we can collect our thoughts. My pockets are so loaded with coins they are falling down. I have literally no more space on me to carry 1 coins. When we get in the car we both sit there and I begin emptying my coins into my girlfriend's lap. We count something 70 to 80 in 1 coins and seriously discuss if we are the subject of one of those TV prank shows. The whole thing was just so surreal, with nobody around and both machines just giving out free money to us. We drove home and nothing else ever came of it. So we came to the conclusion that someone must have put in rolls of 1 coins for some reason into both machines instead of 10p coins. Either way, it was one of those things that happened which was just super funny / surreal at the time and is always one of our favorite stories to reminisce about. Yeah, I know we are technically thieves, but it was magical. When I was 2.5 years old I left my house and walked for 10 minutes, crossing at least 6 roads before entering a pub. I took a shit in the police car on the ride home. That's nothing. My uncle Gary does that at least twice a year, and he's 56. Classic Gary. I got moved to a team on the 2nd floor. My desk was on the 4th floor. I stopped coming to work. The 4th floor team thought I moved downstairs. The 2nd floor team thought I was still upstairs. I just worked from home instead. For over a year. Former coworker got shot in the head during his time in the army. As they tried to remove the bullet, a tumor was found. This tumor would have killed him within a year. He survived and is alive and kicking. During a time in my life when I was post-divorce, deep in debt, living paycheck to paycheck on an impossibly thin budget, I turned in all my airline miles for a free solo trip to Vegas. I had astigmatism and couldn't afford corrective lenses. So I went to the optical shop for a free pair of sample contacts so I could see the strip in all its majesty. On my first day there, I put in the lenses and accidentally scratched my right eye. Overnight it became painfully infected. I went to the clinic and was diagnosed with a huge corneal ulcer that threatened to permanently blind that eye. I was given antibiotics, but I needed to be seen several more times because the injury was so severe. I had no insurance and no way to pay for this. The doctors were great, so I wasn't afraid of losing my eye, but the medical bills on top of my financial situation would have been devastating. I went to the Treasure Island casino gift shop and bought a toy eye patch to cover the wound. Skull and crossbones, of course. Then, I took the $20 I had in my pocket and went to work. I'm not a gambler, but I knew the video blackjack machines had the best odds. I built up small wins and had them cut down by losses, leaving me with only $5. I went for a walk and tried to get my head right. Tried again and lost that $5 too. I went to my bank's website, borrowed a $20 advance, and took it out at the ATM. I tried again. This time things came together. I managed to grow that $20 into just over $500, enough to cover my bills. I stopped there, not wanting to press my luck further. The toy eye patch now hangs on my refrigerator, next to a magnet from the ophthalmologist's office. It's a reminder of the time I gambled for mercy and won. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.